The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Jesus proposed a parable to the crowds. The kingdom of heaven may be likened to a man who sowed good seed in his field. While everyone was asleep, his enemy came and sowed weeds all through the wheat, and then went off. When the crop grew and bore fruit, the weeds appeared as well. The slaves of the householder came to him and said, "Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where have the weeds come from?" He answered, "An enemy has done this." His slaves said to him, "Do you want us to go and pull them up?" He replied, "No. If you pull up the weeds, you might uproot the wheat along with them. Let them grow together until harvest. Then, at harvest time, I will say to the harvesters, 'First collect the weeds and tie them in bundles for burning, but gather the wheat into my barn.'" The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Today, we have a very interesting first reading because it comes also to the knowledge of ourselves. So, in this life that we could call a pilgrimage, heading back to God, because nobody wants to stay down here, right? Anybody wants to stay here? 800 years? There's a moment that, I want to go back home. That's heaven. In that pilgrimage, heading back to God, we also need to understand ourselves. We need to discover ourselves. Why? In that first reading, the prophet, let's go back to the name, Jeremiah, he's sent by God to the entrance of a temple, to the doors, to tell a message to everybody, to anyone that it's coming in. And it is basically telling to them, God knows you. You cannot fool God. So what's happening in that first reading? They are burning things to the idols. They are doing adulteries. They are doing whatever they want that brings pleasure. All the disorders that could come to the world. And later, they come to the temple of the Lord. They, let's burn something to the Lord. How nice the Lord. Like thinking that God doesn't know anything in that first reading. So the prophet Jeremiah, sent by God to that door, it's telling, do you think that God is going to receive your offerings like he doesn't know what's going on? Why don't you fix your life? Basically, that is the first point of the reading. Why don't you start doing justice to the widow? In that time, the widows, they were not able to claim inheritance or own things. So when you were a widow, you were in very bad shape. In that customs of the Jewish, the man is holding basically all their rights. So we need to take care of the widows. Why don't you go do justice to these women, right? It's claiming that. And later, the Lord is presenting through Jeremiah a list of corrections. Let's go there. It says, deal justly with your neighbor. Don't oppress the alien. That's me. Don't oppress me. The orphans. They don't have mom and dad. Why don't you take care of those kids? The widows that we were telling, no longer shed innocent blood in this place. Or stop following gods to your own harm. The Lord knows. You see? In our case, now traveling 2,000 years later to what we are having here today, it is also to understand that since you cannot fool yourself, and of course you cannot fool God, then you have something that it is a gift that comes out of the gospel. The gospel is telling, give time. Instead of taking the wheat right away in that example of the Lord, and you could harm the wheat, the Lord is telling, no, give time. Give time. Let them grow. Our advantage, it is that you are not a weed. You are not a weed too. You are somebody that needs to make decisions. And that involves that All of us. Even if you are the worst person of the entire universe, you have an opportunity to amend, to do the things that God likes. And the Bible and life and history, it's full of examples like that. Let us just recall the first man that enters heaven. Do you remember? Who? Exactly. Who was he? The thief dying next to Jesus. Who was he? Tell me the sins. Come on. Okay, thief. We got that out of the name, right? Okay. What else? Murderer. Because in that time, you don't go to the cross just by stealing stuff. You go to the cross because you have killed somebody, or you have done, like in the case of the Lord, according to them, blasphemy to God. So what's happening to that man? He has sins that they are in levels that basically it is very hard to get there. Killing people? What's wrong with you? And that man, in the last moment, he is able to change from being a totally weed into asking the Lord, Lord, remember me when you enter to the kingdom. The Lord is answering right away. Why? Because he's able to see the soul, not only the body or the presence that it's in front. He says, today, my friend, you will be in paradise with me. So check it out. It's giving all the opportunities. Let's go back now to us. Since we have the great gift of not being able to fool ourselves, like in my case, I will give you a lame example so that you're able to remember, because we like lame examples, right? Don't you? Yeah. I cannot go in the morning to the mirror in my bathroom and say, what a nice hair. Ooh, I'm full of hair. Mamma mia. How nice. Ooh, I'm extremely handsome. Who are you fooling? You know that you don't have it. Maybe you'll get it later in heaven. God's problem. Who knows? Even, I'm very happy like this. I save a lot of money in cutting hairs and things like that. Better. But I cannot fool myself. I don't have it. You see? In my case, let's go also spiritual. I cannot tell to the Lord, ooh, I'm always telling the truth, when I know that I'm holding a lot of lies and taking things out of the people that I care, so they don't know who I am. I cannot fool. I know myself. So what is the advantage in all of that? Back to the readings. God given time. Time for what? Time for us to do a little bit of examination and correct. And correct is painful, of course, because we like commodities. We like to nobody tell us nothing. We like to do whatever we want that it's going to be fine for us. That's for everybody, even to the priest. I would like, for example, to run to the hills, right? Instead of that, I'm enjoying this time with you guys, of course. I need to deny myself, take the cross, follow him. And that it's a little bit painful, but it guides to that kingdom of God. The gospel is telling the kingdom of God resembles, it is alike, and gives the parable. All the meaning of what we just said, it is the way to enter through the gates. The first reading, entering to the temple. But it is not only entering to the temple of the Lord. It is actually heading back to our homeland.